Welcome to Old Classic Car, and in this collection we're celebrating the lesser spotted brown, bronze and beige cars of years gone by. And to kick off this collection we've got JBM 905F, a good old Morris Minor 1000 there in two-door form on an F plate, so that dates it to late 1967 or early 1968. Now down to the Beaulieu Motor Museum and to the pre-war days in this wonderful garage recreation. And that car there, that little Tourer, is a 1920s Colcott Tourer in a very fetching shade of brown, as all the cars in this particular collection are. Somewhat more recent, and this was at the Crewe Heritage Centre, I think, a few months ago. UTB 134L, a good old Mark III Ford Cortina, but not any old Ford Cortina, the GXL, the top of the tree, 4 headlamps, vinyl roof, high spec interior and so on. Cracking car. And a variety of browns on evidence here. This was at Bicester Heritage at the one of their Sunday scramble meets, and the car is an Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser. Check out that rear side window treatment wrapping around into the roof there. What an eye-catching car that is, incredible. And the wood effect as well, just to add to the overall impression. Now, EVT 981J back at Crewe Heritage, and this is an Austin 3 litre. You can see it's a straight 6.3 litre engine there, longitudinal, and the Austin 3 litre is of course the standard Landcrabs had a transverse mounted B series engine, 1800cc, but in the 3 litre it was fore and aft. Now down to Gaydon. This was for the Mini celebration in 2019. We've got a left-hand drive Mini here, and I think, judging by that registration number, this particular brown Mini is driven all the way from Portugal, I think. A beauty in beige here over at Weston Park, I believe. Got AYG 1P, which is a circa 1975 Mercedes 240D, D for diesel. This is one of the W123 series cars. Great old car. Now to Portugal, and then they have a bus and tram museum in Porto, and in there was this fantastic Daimler, cream and brown there, CL1508. I'm not quite sure of the year of this one. I'm guessing about 1960 or thereabouts, so if you know what age this particular vehicle is, please let me know. Good old Triumph Stag is next. This one is on an R plate, so that dates it to late 76 or early 77. This one's got the folding soft top roof, Mark II alley wheels and stainless sill covers, but yeah, lovely shade of Russett Brown, I believe that was called. Very, very light beige now. We've got a vintage car here, BF5489. This is a lovely little Amilcar, an Amilcar 4C. This car dates to 1924. It's a lovely little car. This used to regularly pop up at local VSCC meetings, but I've not seen it in a while. Is it still around? I'm not quite sure. Back to the 1970s and Weston Park, quite a few years ago, about 2006 I think. We have an X-registered Princess here. CTL 846X. It looks like a 1700 HL, but I'm reliably informed it's got a 6-cylinder 2.2 litre engine fitted under that bonnet. A lovely old 1950s Riley RM drop head here. Very smart indeed. The dark blue badge on the radiator surround tells us this is a 1.5 litre car. White wall tyres as well. Back to Weston Park, and we have a slice of a 50s Americana here, this Plymouth, registered APB 493A. That dates this car to 1956. It's got a 4.9 litre engine hiding under the hood. There's a peek inside the very, very brown and cream interior of that Plymouth. What a great looking car that is. Fantastic condition, nice chrome radio there, left-hand drive too, very neatly laid out seat belts as well. Absolutely immaculate car. Back to brown British cars here. We've got an S registered, so late 77 or thereabouts, Daimler Sovereign Coupe, the two-door coupe version of the XJ. That's a smart car indeed. I do like the look of that one a lot. This one's been untaxed since 2011 apparently, so where is it now? Is it in the middle of a restoration perhaps? This is a Subaru 1800, little four-wheel drive pickup truck called the Brat. K565TDE, the registration on that one, registered in March of 1993. Very, very beige with a brown stripe down the side, so just perfect for this collection of brown, bronze and beige cars. And I'm sure this didn't start out looking brown, but here we've got a 1950s V8 Ford pickup truck, a step-side truck with a 5-litre V8 engine. This one dates to 1956. There's a slice of pre-war Britain here, AFG 489. This is a Lanchester coupe, a two-door coupe. April 1935 is the date of this one. Has an 1141cc engine. Very smart it is too. You can see the pram irons, the fake pram irons on the back of the roof there. This was in Portugal a few years ago, a Renault 12 TL Estate in a very dark, slightly dull shade of brown, but it was in the shadows when I took this photo, but it's such a rare car, you never see these here now, so I definitely grabbed the opportunity to photograph this one when I could. This was at the Classic Car Show in North Wales in 2022. We've got a bubble-arched two-door Ford Escort Mark 1. Again, very, very brown, showing off its engine. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the engine in this one. Very, very blue. Is that a later unit? I don't know my Fords well enough, but I'm sure someone watching this will know. A much older car now, the second oldest car to feature in this particular collection. We've got a 1902 Arroll Johnston, no less. Very brown and a very low registration there. XS2. I wonder what XS1 was. Next up, back to Weston Park on a very, very sunny day in 2022 in the Classic Car Show, and we have 9442RE. This is an Armstrong Siddeley Star Sapphire. Very nice it is too, black over beige. This was in a Welsh scrapyard. Photographed this in 2006, but I think it's long since been cleared. We got a Dolomite Sprint, an R-registered car, about 1976, looking very, very down at heel. Was this one rescued? Clearly someone had been running over the boot lid on. You can see plenty of boot or paw prints there. In somewhat happier condition is this four-door Mark II Ford Escort 1.6 gear, dating to late 77 or early 1978. Bronzy metallic colour there, so it's just about brown, so it just about qualifies for this collection. Down to a museum now, and we have a very smart bullnose Morris Cowley, and a really excellent photograph on the back wall there, black and white photo of the Morris production line showing how these cars were built, but again very, very brown. Beautiful metallic brown sunbeam rapier here with its side windows wound down, giving it the pillarless coupe look. What a great looking car that is. You hardly ever see brown cars nowadays. That's one of the reasons why I thought I'll put this little collection together of brown classic and vintage cars. Brown, bronze, all kind of related, and beige, as with this car, an X-Reg Triumph TR7 drophead. Initially these cars were only available in fixed head form, and somewhat belatedly in the late 1970s Triumph decided to offer the drophead version, which is what we see here. An X-Reg car, so about 1981, that must be one of the last surely. This was at a Welsh motor museum, which is still going I believe, and we've got a Rover P5B. You can tell the V8 cars because they had those fog lamps set in under the headlights and slightly different grille. The earlier six-cylinder cars had a much more colourful black, red and gold badge in the middle of their radiator grille. Staying with Rover for a moment, we've got a tobacco brown, I believe is the colour for this one, or tobacco leaf rather, Rover 2000 P6. This was at Cholmondeley Castle Classic Car Show quite a while ago. This car dates to 1970. Great year. And enjoying the sunshine here at Crewe Heritage, we've got DLE 248J, first of two photos of this car that will feature. This is a Triumph 1500 London registered car, first put on the road in April of 1971. 1500cc engine, of course, was the ultimate evolution, if you like, of the original standard 8 engine, the SC engine. Now, down to Malvern, TAN 917F is a Riley 472. Quite a rare survivor now. to the NEC Classic Car Show, and in two-tone brown, or caramel and brown I suppose, with black wings, is an Austin 7-box saloon of about 1930-31, somewhere like that I would have thought. Glistening here in the sunshine, another slice of Americana, we have a GMC day van. Next up, in brown and beige, just about qualifies as beige, we have MDD 455, a Morris LC commercial. This one dates to 1953. This was at Weston Park in about 2006 or 7, I think it was. A couple of pre-war gems now. The car on the left in the foreground, VW8055. That is a Lee Francis Tourer from 1929, 1500cc engine under that bonnet. That's my old Morris Minor, 1934, parked alongside it. This was at a VSCC event, I can't quite remember which one. And then a glorious bronzy brown colour. Now we have a 4-door K-registered Ford Cortina Mark III ARL 812K from 1971. A little gathering of various brown and beige cars here, an XJ Series 1 at the top left, and a standard 10, a Super 10 in fact, at the bottom left, a Bond mini car, and the remains of a Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit spotted in a scrapyard a long time ago now. Not much left of that one. This was at Weston Park also in the mid-2000s, an X-registered Starcraft camper. These were based on the contemporary Ford Cortina, as you can clearly tell, although the lamps are very different. Fiberglass panel work on this one. But yeah, certainly an oddball looking vehicle, brown with a white camper section. Now down to the NEC, and we have a Vauxhall Cavalier sports hatch. The same body shell was used on the Opel Manta, but this is the Vauxhall Cavalier version, and probably a fair bit rarer, I would have thought, than the Opel Manta. You very rarely see these now. Back to Weston Park in, I think this was 2022, so not very long ago, and this is a 1970 Mark III Mini Cooper S. By this point in time, all the Coopers and Cooper S's had the 1275cc engine, the A-Series engine, transversely mounted under that little bonnet, twin carburetors, and so on. Now this is a 1964 Wolseley 1660. I bought this off someone that I used to work with. They needed to get rid of it ASAP, so I bought it from them, welded up the sills, and I've run this for a little while. My garage was looking a lot emptier back in those days. Where is it now? I haven't seen this one in quite a while. There's another one of mine. This is the old Standard 10 Companion, about 1960 or 61 I think this one was, but such a useful little car. Bespoke, proper 4-door estate car. It wasn't another one that was based on the vans like the 100E and the 300E Fords. The Standard Estate was a body specifically for an estate car. Now we have a G-Reg Wolseley. This is an 1885 with the transverse B-Series engine under its bonnet. And it didn't start out looking brown, and I'm hoping it probably isn't looking brown now, but very brown when we pick this up. This is my mate's XK120 fixed head coupe project. There is a separate video introducing this car on the channel elsewhere, so if you want to see a daunting project, go and check out that video when you're finished here. And there's a real stunner, 65 ACA, a metallic bronzy brown Volvo P1800 ES, the fuel injected 4-cylinder car. What a great looking car that is. Take the Volvo badge off and you'd never guess it was a Volvo. There's a very pale beige and brown Ford Model Y, the 8 horsepower Ford of the early to mid 1930s. This is a long rad car. The earlier cars had a slightly shorter radiator. The 933cc 4-cylinder side valve engine powered these, same engine as in my Anglia. Now at first glance you'd think this was a Mark I Granada, but this is in fact a Consul GT, Mark I Consul GT, and this car was used in the Sweeney, the very famous TV series of the 1970s. Incredibly, the car survives as you see it here, now very much in the restored condition. Next up, we've got a Porsche 911. This is a left-hand drive car. This used to pop up quite regularly at some of the classic car gatherings that take place in the area, but I believe it's gone overseas now, this car. While mooching around the Portuguese Motor Museum a few years ago, we stumbled across this very brown Mercedes-Benz. This is a 380k Mercedes from 1934. Drop-head coupe, a very, very swish set of wheels indeed, and very, very brown indeed. Also brown, but much more of a grey-brown kind of colour. We've got this H-registered 1969 Triumph 2000 Saloon. As I said before, you hardly ever see brown on new cars. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's just one of those colours that's gone out of favour, but maybe it'll come back into vogue again one day, who knows. Here's a creamy beige Chevrolet now, a Chevrolet 3100 step-side pickup. And this one, these were built for several years in the early 1950s with a split screen, and last year had a one-piece screen. And this one I think is a 52 model, looking at the registration plate there. Down to Malvern in 2022, and a very smart H-Reg MG 1300. So this has the 1275 engine, very similar to that in the late Mini Coopers. Also twin carburetors, so effectively just a larger version really of the Mini, but with 4 comfortable seats. The good old Austin Devon. This was at Malvern, but quite a few years before. What registration do we have here? LPX 844. This is Devon. Hasn't actually been on the road since 2010. It's a 1950 car. It's not been on the road for nearly 13 years, so what's happening with that one, I wonder. Now, down at Brooklands, we were having a bit of a mooch around a couple of years ago, and VC8174 was there in its glorious brown and cream livery. This is a 1931 MG M-Type Midget, and very smart it is too. This was based on a contemporary Morris Minor. This was, I think, in the Haynes Motor Museum, and as the sign, the information board on the back wall says, this is a Rolls-Royce armoured car, no less. Review now of a Daimler Sovereign based on a Series 1 Jaguar XJ. This is on the K plate, so 71 or early 72. It's a 2.8 litre car. It was only the Series 1s had the option of the 2.8. And this has got the extra reflectors. It's got the early reflectors built into the reversing lights, but also reflectors beneath the back lights as well. Unusual. Now, W-Reg 1980, Reliant Scimitar SE6 is next in a very light brown colour with period Wolf Race mag slot alley wheels on it as well. That looks quite the part. Continuing with this brown theme, we've got a two-tone Rolls-Royce here, WY 555, a Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. This was put on the road in April of 1959. It's seen here at the Crewe Heritage Centre with a variety of old ice cream vans in the background there. Great stuff. Now, the oldest vehicle to appear in this video of brown and beige cars is BS8300. As it handily says on the front panel there, this is a 1900 Albion, no less. What an incredible car that is. No brakes on the front and minimal braking at the back from what I can tell. Tiller steering as well. Now, GF8793, this wonderful old car is a 1930 Rolls-Royce Phantom 2 Saloon. What a cracker that is. I can just imagine doing a European tour in the 1930s with that. You've got a small trunk on the back as well. What a magnificent motor car that is. And also very, very smart, and also enjoying the Cheshire Sun a few years ago is this S-registered Triumph 2500S. This, I think, was the replacement for the 2.5 PI, which proved a little problematic with its Lucas fuel injection back in the day, so Triumph reverted to twin carburetors, I believe. Next up, based on the Citroën Diane, this is the Citroën Acadian van. Little panel van with a rippled rear bodywork there. Yeah, very, very handy little vehicle indeed, but very thin steelwork on these things, rotted for England, or France in fact. You don't see too many of them now, nor do you see many of these either. This is a two-tone AC 2-litre PPX 332. This car was registered in July of 1951, and again you don't see many of those at all. A little bit newer than that AC 2 litre, we have an A registered Citroen BX. This car was registered in March of '86. I did a quick check of the DVLA website, and this particular Citroen has been untaxed since 1997. So it arrived on a trailer at this particular classic car show, and presumably it's still work in progress. But let me know if you can say any more. Now, 1964 is the date of this old Volkswagen. This is a VW 1500, a Type 3, and it's the notchback. You also had the squareback estate, which we'll see an example of later, but this is the notchback. A nice looking car, I like these. A gathering of cars at a VSCC evening meet, and in the foreground is a brown or brown metallic-y bronze type coloured Triumph Roadster. An unusual colour. Would that have been an original colour for these back in the 1940s and 50s? I'm not quite sure, but it's certainly eye-catching. Back down to the Haynes Motor Museum, XMA 82J is a 1970 Honda 600. That's a very unusual little car. Shades of A40 Mark II, I always think when I see the front of these particular cars, but smaller than the A40 and much, much rarer as well. Back to Cholmondeley, and we have a Hilmer Minx. The little note in the screen there tells us that this Hilmer Minx dates to 1963, and at the time it only had 25,000 miles on the clock. I'm guessing that might be the original paint. Two-tone, but mostly brown. AA badge on the front as well. Back over to North Wales for the Classic Car Show in 2022. There is a video all about that meeting elsewhere on the channel, so please check that out. There's some interesting cars there, but here we've got a 1972 Simca 1100 GLS, four-door saloon, a very, very rare sight, and a lovely brown interior as well. Fantastic. Also fantastic is this early 1920s Rover. This is the air-cooled Rover 8, so very much Rover's rival to the little Austin 7 that came out in 1922, but these weren't produced for very many years at all, so survivors are quite thin on the ground now. Lovely old Chevrolet pickup truck here. This series rather, these were built from 1941 and continued in production until 1946. And this old Survivor is based down at Brooklands at the old motor racing circuit there. This is an AEC militant, ex-army AEC militant, and converted, as so many were, into a recovery truck, a heavy recovery vehicle. And that one looks to be in great condition, all over brown with grey wings. Two-tone now, we've got an off-whitey beige and brown Ford Model A, SV9149. I'm guessing that dates to about 1929, 1930, somewhere around about there. I'm sure they change pretty much every year, so someone will know the exact date for sure. But yeah, that's a lovely old car, that is. As is this, much newer, and on a private registration. That wouldn't be its original registration number. But we've got a mighty Granada Coupe, 3-litre gear, Mark I Granada Coupe with tan vinyl roof. The essential accessory for any upmarket car in the 1970s, those vinyl roofs. But no such luxuries on this wonderful old Van den Plath 3-litre. Van den Plas, rather, Princess 3-litre. That's on an A plate, so early 1960s, the big Farina, and a very comfortable old cruiser that was, just too. Most of them lost to banger racing, of course, and rots and so on, so survivors are very few on the ground. Same for this, the Hillman Hunter. This is on a K plate, so about 1971 or thereabouts. Four-door saloon, the Arrow series car. You also had the Hillman Minx and the Singer Vogue and so on, but this is a browny bronze coloured Hunter. And an Austin Allegro T-Reg, so what's that, about 1977 or thereabouts, maybe early 78 as well. And this is in Russett Brown. The front valance there, hand painted in black, as was so often the case on many cars in the 1970s and 1980s once they started rusting a little bit. Bit older now, KNX 374, it's a glorious Jaguar Mark V, a 3.5 litre car, in a very, very light browny beige colour. This is a regular again at many of the classic car shows around here. We often see this one out and about, and a lovely looking car. What great styling that is. Something just a little bit different here. This was at the Smallwood Vintage Rally on a D plate, so that puts it at 1966, and it is, of course, a fairly early Bedford TK flatbed lorry with the moustache front end on it. The later TKs didn't have those swirly bits above the Bedford badge there. This was at an auction at Donington Park many years ago, and it is, of course, one of the Farina designed Morris Oxfords. Got an off-white roof, but the main body is a wonderful shade of brown. Somewhat smaller, sort of a coffee creamy type colour with brown accents and black wings, is this Austin 7, Chrome Rad Austin 7 Box Saloon. About halfway through almost now, and here an S registered 1977 or early 78 Triumph Dolomite in very good company. This was a lineup, there was a whole lineup of Triumph Dolomites in fact on the club stand, and various other classic cars in the background. Back down to Haynes for their fantastic motoring museum. I certainly recommend visiting that if you haven't been before. And this is a 1970 DAF 33 in a very fetching mid shade of brown. Taking up quite a large parking space at Cholmondeley Castle was this mighty Lincoln. This is a Mark IV Lincoln Continental of the early 1970s, I expect. Incredible car. I do like the earlier Lincoln Continentals in particular. I think they're very stylish cars. This was an Austin A40 Somerset that I ran around about 2000 to 2002 or thereabouts. I later found out after I sold it, it fell on hard times and it was looking quite rough, and someone actually converted it into a pickup truck. If you do a search for that registration number, you'll probably find photos of it on Google Images as a truck, and very smart it looks too. Now, on a J plate, so 1970, we have a Sunbeam Vogue, not a Singer Vogue, but a Sunbeam Vogue in a very fetching shade of metallic bronzy brown. To another motor museum, and we go back to the pre-war Morris days and a circa 1929 or 30 or thereabouts flat-rad Morris Cowley Saloon, two-tone brown and beige. What an assortment of bicycles hanging up as well. I well remember this was a great museum. A very unusual shade of browny kind of colour is BLD 776. This is a late 1934 Austin 7 Ruby. This one's currently off the road, declared SORN, which is a statutory off-road notification, which is what you have to declare if you're not taxing your car. A few years ago we spotted this in a gathering of cars and classic buses, another Rover P6 in tobacco leaf brown. This is a 2-litre car on Y wheels, which is fairly unusual, and an extra bonnet scoop as well. I do like old camper vans and caravans, and this is a camper based on the good old Austin 152. Morris had the J2 version with a slightly different grille, but this is the Austin 152. What a Bobby Dazzler that is. Fantastic little thing. Just imagine brewing up in the back of that at a show. Talking of shows, this is the NEC Classic Car Show, and a very modified pre-war Ford V8, a Woody in fact. Not everyone's cup of tea, I admit, but there's no doubting what a fantastic paint finish on that car. Beautifully turned out. The good old Morris. We had a 2-door Morris Minor earlier on, and here we've got a 1968 4-door Morris Minor 1000. One of the most affordable entries into the world of classic cars. If you're thinking of buying a classic car, you could do a lot worse than have a look at a Morris Minor. I like the little rubber bump stop on the edge of the door as well, just to stop you scraping the paint off. Now to the NEC again, and we've got the Ford Model A club stand and a 2-door saloon based on the Model A, circa 1930, 31, something like that. We've already had an Allegro in Russett Brown, and here we have the Allegro based Van den Plas 1500. This of course replaced the VDP 1300, which was based on the old Austin Morris 1100 and 1300, and the VDP from the mid-70s was based on the Allegro, as you see here. Now this was a real oddball in a caramelly colour and brown. OXS 535, that's a 1934 rear-engined Mercedes-Benz W23 130 to be precise. Absolute stunning car. I've got a feeling this won an award over that weekend. Such a beautiful car. And talking of the old princesses based on the 1100 and 1300, here we've got a brown Van den Plas 1300. H registration, 1969 or early 1970, that particular car. All of the VDPs of this era were 4 doors. I don't think they ever did a 2-door. Also at Cholmondeley Castle, which was the location for that VDP we've just seen, there's another early 30s Ford. I think this is a Model B 2-door sedan. Very nice indeed. Two-tone brown and cream wheels. What a great looking car that is. I don't remember seeing this one for a long time, so I don't know that it's still in the area even. And at the same venue again, we have a W Reg 1980 or thereabouts, Chevrolet El Camino pickup. Quite an unusual car in this country, probably very common in America. Like a mono body, so you haven't got a separate rear pickup bed, it's all sort of blended into the cab. These used to be quite popular back in the 1970s, but you don't see them too often now. The Toyota Celica. A neighbour of ours had a silver one of these when they were brand new in the late 1970s, I think it was. But yeah, quite a smart looking little coupe, I think. Don't often see them in brown either. A lovely mighty Jaguar here. There's no strips down the sides. At first I thought this was the Mark 10 rather than the later 420G, but I think this is a 420G given that it was registered in 1969. So this would have the 4.2 as opposed to the earlier car's 3.8 litre XK straight 6 engine under that bonnet. It's on Wolf Race alloys as well. Rare Mini here. This is the Italian built, Innocenti built Mini Cooper 1300. Many differences compared to the UK market Minis. Very different dashboard, and you've got opening quarter lights in the doors as well, which the British cars didn't have. So that's quite a rare little car. Back to Cholmondeley Castle, a classic car show years and years ago. We've got a Manchester registered M-Reg Triumph Toledo. This would have had the 1300cc engine under its bonnet. And a Saab 99, quite an early example of the breed from about 1970. These had the 1709cc 4-cylinder engine, which went on to be used as a basis for the engine in the Triumph Dolomites, the 1850 Dolomites. Back to Cholmondeley, and a rear 3/4 view now of a lovely little 4-door Austin saloon. This is an Austin 10-4. The Chrome Rad cars, these were only built from 32 to 1934, so they weren't all that numerous. They had narrow bodies, which this is, and a slightly wider body as well. It was replaced by the Litchfield a little bit later on. Also at Cholmondeley, we have a 2-tone brown Chevy 3100 step-side pickup here with a period-correct Fulton sun visor. There's the little spot lamps mounted on the screen pillars as well. Very, very smart, shiny example. Non-original wheels, and what other mods are there? We saw this at the Bewley Motor Museum in 2022. Again, that's another place that there's a video all about on the channel, so please check that out. This is a 1967 Morris Minor Traveller, of course. This has belonged, I believe, to the Montague family since new, I think, if I remember correctly. But yeah, very bonny example. As is this wonderful Sunbeam Rapier, the 2-door Sunbeam Rapier. I like those period wheel trims as well. I don't think I've ever seen those anywhere else. I'm not sure cyclists would be too keen on them, but yeah, really smart car, that brown and white. Beautiful looking car, based of course on the Hillman Minx. And this is a Jaguar, one of the XJ40 series, XJ6s. This replaced the Series 3 XJ in about 1980, 87 I think it was, something like that. This is on a K-plate, so a little bit later, but yeah, very smart example in metallic bronzy brown colour. Next up, pre-war Austin. This looks like an Austin 12 to me. Lovely old car from about, I'd have thought about 1932 or thereabouts. The big heavy artillery type wheels they call those. But yeah, that's a lovely looking car. Back down to the NEC and a very, very light pale beige Ford Cortina. This is a Cortina Mark V on alley wheels, period correct Ford alley wheels. Are they RS 2000 wheels? I'm not quite sure. You can just about see it's got one of those plastic rear window louvers in the back window and a boot spoiler as well. Now across to Haynes again. We've been here before today, and here another example of a brown, very, very brown Triumph Stag. And this one has a hardtop, so again an extra dose of brownness and a brown interior as well. Not quite so brown, much more subtle, is 486 UXP, one of the split window VWs. That's a really smart little van indeed. Interesting wheels, but yeah, that's a real smart little vehicle. Still plenty of brown cars to go, and this was at Bicester Heritage in January 2023. E618 HTL, a Ford Taurus. This has got a 3-litre V6 engine under its bonnet. Obviously it's an estate, and this car dates to 1988. Many shades of brown evident there with that wood effect down the side. But yeah, I've never seen one of those before, whereas these I've seen plenty of them. This is the Daimler version of the Series 3 XJ6. We had the XJ40 a few cars ago. This is WCN 610Y, a 4.2 litre Daimler Series 3. What a beauty that is. Back down to Brooklands and a wonderful early 1930s Rolls Royce. Now what model is that? Maybe you could help me out and tell me which model, and importantly which coach builder is responsible for the bodywork on this car. I'm not too well up on my pre-war Rolls Royces, so if you can help out, please pop a note into the comments. This we spotted in France. If you've seen our road trip video from late 2022, we spotted this on the side of a dual carriageway, so we screeched to a halt and ran back and managed to grab a bit of film and a few photographs of this very tired looking Rover P6, a 2200 TC. Clearly hadn't moved in a very long time. Now this is an interesting little car. We photographed this one at the WEM Vehicles of Interest in Shropshire, and it's based on a Singer Junior, but I think it's been very, very modified. It seems to sit lower, different suspension, different axles, smaller wheels. So there's clearly a lot of development work gone on with this particular car, but I haven't seen it in a while. Back to Haynes, and we've got another Saab 99. We had an early one before, and this is quite a late example, a W-Reg car. It's not a turbo, but it's about 1980 or 81, this particular car. 4-door brown saloon. Yes, really good quality cars. Quite quirky, quite idiosyncratic, these Saabs, but they drive nicely. Now, another commercial vehicle, another example of the Morris LC. I think this is an LC5 in the livery of Great Western Railway. Cream and brown was their colour choice back in the day. And that's a great looking old truck. And there's another Morris on the left there, but that's red, so we won't dwell on that one. And very beige now. We're at a museum in North Wales, PRD 949G. A Land Rover, one of the forward control Land Rovers. This one appears to be equipped as a breakdown recovery vehicle, but in great condition. What a fantastic vehicle that is. Still plenty of brown cars to go, and here we've got a Trabant. And appropriately, this old Trabby is parked up next to a BP Zoom 2-stroke fuel dispenser or pump. That's just a great combination. I love that. Avery Hardall, that particular pump. But yeah, great stuff. The bronzy brown metallic here. This is a rare old bird. Has this been rescued? I believe it's moved now, but it's on a P-Reg, so what, 1975 Vauxhall Magnum 1800. Of course, this was based on the Vauxhall Viva HC, but if you know what's happened to this car, has it gone on to be restored, or is it undergoing restoration? Who knows? And same for this. Not everyone's cup of tea, perhaps, but it's very, very brown. It's an Oldsmobile of the late 1970s. What model is that? It's not a vehicle I'm really familiar with at all, so I don't know what model that is, what year it is, but I know it was an Oldsmobile. But yeah. Anyway, this is a Citroën DS, and the little board there on the floor tells us that this is a 1974 Citroën DS20. What a stunning bit of kit that is. That is just lovely. And the 2CV behind it as well. Another gathering here of 4 cars. We've got a Ford Model A at the top left there, and a Vauxhall Cresta, a Simca Estate in a bronze metallic, and in a very similar colour is one of the posh Austin Maxes. This is an HL spec car from 1979. Are all these cars still around? These were taken quite a while ago, those photos. This belongs to a friend of mine. It's an old Morris PV van of the late 1940s. He's done it up in a two-tone livery, cream and brown. It's not a GWR vehicle, but if you ever wanted to put GWR lettering on it, it would certainly look the part at any preserved railway. Now, 6353TU is a glorious Bentley S1. This car dates to 1956. And also TU registered, which is a Manchester, I think, TTU 399H. Another VW Type 3. We had the notchback earlier on in a darker brown, and this is a beigey, creamy colour Type 3 squareback, or estate as everyone else will call it, complete with sun visor. But yeah, that's a cool looking car, I think. The Lancia Beta Coupe is next. This was on the Lancia Owners Club stand at one of the NEC classic car shows that I've been to. Good ones of these are few and far between now. These things rotted like crazy, but then again, most cars in the 1970s rotted pretty spectacularly. Somewhat more genteel and upright is this pre-war Austin. This is quite early. This, I would say, is late 1920s. You can see the carriage type door handles there. That tends to date these cars. A very lofty, boxy saloon body. On this particular car, I'm guessing it's an Austin 12, but that's just wonderful. Two photos now of Russett Brown MGB GTs. They're both on tier registration, so that would be August 78 to July of 1979. This car is on mini light wheels. It never would have been sold on those originally, but it's a very popular modification now. This was in WEM. And there's a rear three-quarter view of a very similar car, also a T-plated car. It's got twin exhaust pipes, this one though, so it's been modified slightly, but this has the original road style wheels on it. Still a few of these beige and brown cars to come, and here we have a van in this case, and what a beautiful old van that is. Surprisingly, this is actually made by Armstrong Siddeley, which is a maker I usually associate with cars, but this is an Armstrong Siddeley van from 1926. But yeah, that is just, what a great old van that is. I love that. And this is pretty nifty as well. This is a much later Jensen Interceptor. Showing off its mighty Chrysler V8 engine there. Maybe it was showing it off, or maybe it was just cooling it down a little bit. It was a very hot day when I took this photograph, so perhaps it was just a little bit of extra cooling for a very big engine. Down to Gaydon and the Jaguar collection, the Jaguar Daimler Heritage Trust collection, and they've got this glorious little two-tone Austin 7 swallow-bodied Austin 7. That's very, very smart indeed. I do like those little air intakes on top of the scuttle as well. Somewhat less happy and slowly dissolving into the undergrowth is this Hillman. Now, whether this is a Hillman Minx or a Hunter, I'm not quite sure. I'm not too good on my late Roots Group cars, so perhaps you can confirm whether this is a Minx or a Hunter, but either way, its condition is looking pretty desperate. Much happier though, and also Roots Group is 439DKF. I do like this era. This is a Hillman Minx from about 1956. It's got the 1390cc overhead valve engine. But yeah, that's a really smart car. Very similar colour scheme to that standard companion of mine that I showed earlier. No tech lamps on the front as well. And a very bonny little Mini here from 1977. Is this Russett Brown as well? It looks like it. Did they use the same name across all the BL marks, or did they have different names for the same colour? Triumph Austin and so on. Still plenty of cars to go, and here we've got a very beige BMW. This is one of the BMW E3 saloons, four-door saloons of the early to mid 1970s. This Welsh registered car is a 2.5 litre car. They also did the 2.8, the 3 litre, and the top of the tree, the 3.3 Li with fuel injection. Cracking old Hillman Avenger here. This is a Hillman Avenger four-door saloon from 1971 or early 72. The K registration series ran from one year through to the next, so that's why you can't be entirely sure without looking up every registration number. And this is a very rare car. Very similar shade as well to this Audi Coupe. This is not just any old Audi, but this is an Audi Quattro. A wonderful 5-cylinder car, made famous in international rallying in the about 1980, 81, that kind of era. These sound fantastic. Really great sounding cars. And here's that second photo that I promised before of DLE 248J. The photo one was taken at Crewe Heritage Centre, but here's a rear view of the same car at WEM, the Vehicles of Interest show at WEM. But yeah, it's just looked really original. That's what stood out for me with this car. All the paintwork looks so original on it, just great. And here's quite a well-known Jaguar. That's a lovely car. This LWK 707 and XK120 fixed head, 1952 car. And this car averaged over 100 miles an hour over 7 days and 7 nights at the Mondelez racing circuit. So that's quite a famous car in Jaguar's history. Somewhat more humble is WBJ 334, but arguably more people can associate with this, and this is a Thames 300E van of the mid-1950s. Just a few more brown cars to come, and here we've got a bronzy browny metallic Volvo 164 K-Reg, so 71 or 72. These had the 3-litre straight-six engine. It was based on the engine that was in the Amazon, which was a 4-cylinder, and then they added a couple of cylinders and it became the 164 3-litre. Some were fuel injected and others were on carburetors. What's going on with this Mercedes, I'm not quite sure, but it's very brown and very low, presumably on air suspension. Not really my scene, I must admit, but it's certainly quite a rare car now, these 4-door saloons. Back to slightly more normal ride heights, or at least some of the time, and we have a glorious Citroën SM. This was at Bicester Heritage a few years ago. This was at Bicester in 2018, in fact. But yeah, what a stylish car that is. 2.7 Maserati engine under the bonnet of that Citroën. Great cars, but very complicated. Several more beige and brown cars. We've got an Austin Ambassador at the top left there. That was in the car park at Tatton Park, at least probably 20 years ago, getting on for that. Got a Rolls Royce as well. And that Land Rover at the bottom there, that's a very unusual camper based on the Land Rover long wheelbase chassis. A slice of Americana here, SV8099, that's a Ford Model A. A fetching shade of dark brown with black wings, or fenders, perhaps it should be called. But yeah, that was nice. That was also at Tatton Park many years ago. Is it still around? I wonder where that is now. Back down to Gaydon and the British Motor Museum, and this is the Wolseley 1822, if memory serves. A very early Princess space. They didn't make these for very long at all. E time here, BOA 855A. It's probably not its original registration, I suspect, but in the days before allocating age-related non-suffix registrations, this is what your car would end up with if it lost its original reg or it was imported. This is a 100E Anglia 2-door. And 4 doors now, we have an X-Reg 1981 Vauxhall Chevette. This is a rare survivor indeed. I remember these in this colour. I think I've got the brochure somewhere that shows cars with this colour and the sort of very distinctive checked trim I think that seats have. Smart little beige Morris van here, one of the Morris minor based vans, but unlike the saloons, these had a separate chassis. The vans and the pickups had a separate box chassis, whereas the saloons had a monocoque body, so very different under the skin, even though the first appearances they look very similar indeed. The Morris Ital now, W registered, 1980 or early 81. I love the period tiger print seat covers in there as well. Just a few more to go of these brown and beige cars, and flying the flag for beige, unusually, is this 1967 MGA Roadster. I don't think I've ever seen another one in beige of these particular cars. This is quite a late car with that partially recessed grille. It wouldn't be long before the MGB took over. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen another one in that colour. T-Reg 1977 or maybe early 78. We've got another Vauxhall Cavalier, the coupe Vauxhall Cavalier. We had the sports hatch earlier on, and this looks like a slightly modified coupe on slightly wider banded wheels. Looks very purposeful, but I wonder what's going on under the bonnet of that particular car. This one's showing off its underbonnet area, and this is the Wolseley 1550. This was the revised version of the good old Wolseley 444, and this had the BMC B series engine shoe under its bonnet, and this is a car I'd very much like to own. One of these was on my radar definitely not so long ago. Many shades of brown and a bit of red here, and we've got JCJ 524, a very smart Bedford of the 1940s, early 1950s. Carrying on with these brown and beige vehicles, we have a very beige bay window VW camper here. This is the latest one, S-Reg 77 or 78 is the date of this particular car. You can see the side opening door there and just a peek inside at its camper interior. Such a huge following these vehicles have now. A slice of Americana HSK 171. So this car dates to 1957. It's a 5.8 litre V8 Buick 4-door sedan. What a belter that is. And that Buick rounds off this collection of brown, beige and bronze coloured cars. Like I say, you hardly ever see brown as a colour now on modern cars, so I thought it was high time I do a collection just on that particular colour. I hope that was of some interest. I know it's quite a long video, but thanks for sticking with it. There's so many more videos on the channel now, so please have a look around before you disappear, and there'll be more videos along very, very soon, so keep an eye out for those. Bye for now.